3:30 in the morning and my wife Laura was doing yoga again. Funny thing about yoga, it usually doesn't involve your phone buzzing every 5 minutes with calls from X. I stood in our kitchen, watching her through the window as she crept back from the garage, smoothing down her hair like she'd been doing something more strenuous than downward dog. The motion sensor light caught her guilty expression perfectly. "Jason, what are you doing up?" Laura's voice had that sharp edge it got when she was caught off guard. "Couldn't sleep. Thought I heard the garage door." I kept my tone casual, but my IT consultant brain was already cataloging inconsistencies. No yoga mat in sight, no sweat. Lipstick refreshed. "I was just getting some fresh air. You know how stuffy it gets upstairs." She moved past me toward the stairs, but her phone buzzed again. The screen lit up. Scott, your ex is pretty concerned about your breathing exercises," I said. Laura's face flushed. "Stop acting like my body belongs to you, Jason. I can do yoga whenever I want." "So why does your ex keep calling you during your midnight sessions? You moonlighting as a therapist now?" She stormed upstairs without answering. I waited exactly 3 minutes, then followed quietly. Laura was already in bed, phone face down on the nightstand, pretending to sleep. But I'd seen enough. 20 years in IT security teaches you to recognize patterns. And this pattern spelled betrayal in bold, flashing letters. The next morning, while Laura showered, I made my move. Her phone, the same one that buzzed all night, sat unguarded on the bathroom counter. My fingers worked quickly, connecting a USB cable I'd prepared weeks ago. Just a routine backup, nothing illegal about securing your own household devices. The data transfer took 90 seconds. 90 seconds to download months of lies. I scrolled through the messages in my workshop, coffee growing cold as the ugly truth unfolded. Laura to Scott. "Jason's working late again. Come over at 11. Scott to Laura. "Your husband's so clueless. Does he really not know?" Laura to group chat with Tara and Aaron. "Jason thinks I'm at book club. If only he knew what I was really reading." Tara. "Girl, you're playing with fire. What if he finds out?" Laura. "Jason, please. He's too busy with his computers to notice anything." The messages went back 6 months. 6 months of book clubs and yoga sessions and girls' nights. 6 months of my wife and her friends laughing at the stupid husband who worked 60-hour weeks to pay for their lifestyle. Turns out, the only thing flexible about Laura's yoga was her definition of marriage. I sat back in my workshop chair staring at the evidence. Most men would confront their wives immediately. Scream, cry, throw things. Demand explanations and apologies. But I'm not most men. 22 years in the Army taught me patience. 2 decades in cybersecurity taught me that information is power. And 38 years of life taught me that revenge is a dish best served with a side of public humiliation. I opened my laptop and placed an order. 2 custom body pillows, life-sized. One printed with my face, one with Scott's. Express delivery to Laura's office. The note would read, "You always dreamed of having both of us. Enjoy. Let the games begin." My old Army buddy Nate showed up Tuesday morning with coffee and a crap-eating grin. "So what's this emergency consultation you need? Someone hacking your Netflix account?" "Something like that." I handed him Laura's printed message history. "My wife's been doing some unauthorized network sharing." Nate's expression shifted as he read. 20 years of friendship meant he knew exactly what this meant to me. "Jesus, Jason, I'm sorry, man. What do you want to do about it?" "Information warfare. I need to know everything about Scott Williams, where he works, where he lives, his routines, everything. You thinking about paying him a visit?" "Nothing illegal. Just want to understand my opponent." I pulled up Scott's LinkedIn profile. Digital marketing consultant. Lives downtown in one of those converted warehouse lofts. Drives a red Tesla Model 3. Nate studied the photo. "Looks like the kind of guy who uses hair product and calls it styling paste. Want me to do some recon?" "Already handled, but I could use backup for phase 2. That afternoon, I installed a security camera in my own garage, perfectly legal. My property, my right to monitor it. The camera had night vision and motion activation. If Laura was bringing her boyfriend to my house, I wanted documentation. I didn't have to wait long. Thursday night, Laura announced another book club meeting. I wished her luck with whatever she was reading and settled into my workshop with a beer and a live feed from the garage camera. At 10:47 p.m., Laura's Honda pulled in. At 10:52, A red Tesla followed. I watched Scott Williams climb out of his car like he owned the place. Tall, lean, wearing jeans that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. He had that casual confidence of a man who'd never been punched in the face. That was about to change. Not literally, I'm not stupid, but figuratively, Scott Williams was about to discover what happens when you mess with someone who spent 2 decades learning creative problem solving in hostile environments. The camera captured them embracing, kissing, whispering like teenagers. Laura led him toward the side door that connected to our basement rec room. My basement, my furniture, my marriage bed, apparently. I saved the footage and began planning. Friday morning, I followed Scott to his office building. He worked on the 15th floor of a glass tower downtown, the kind of place where people wore expensive suits and had meetings about meetings. I watched him park his Tesla in the same spot. Apparently, he had a routine. Saturday, I visited his building. The parking garage was semi-public, accessible to visitors during business hours. I left a note under his windshield wiper. Maybe you should get your own parking spot and your own wife. Nothing threatening, nothing illegal, just a friendly suggestion from a concerned citizen. Sunday, Laura went to brunch with the girls. I followed her to Tara's apartment complex and watched her meet Scott in the parking lot. They drove together to a hotel 20 minutes away. I didn't follow them inside. I didn't need to see what happened next. But I did photograph his license plate and the hotel receipt he carelessly left on his dashboard when they returned, Mrs. O'Malley, our 73-year-old neighbor, was watering her flowers when I got home. Your wife's been keeping busy, she said without preamble. Mrs. O'Malley had lived on our street for 40 years and knew everyone's business. How's that? A lot of late-night visitors lately. That red car has been here 3 times this week, different from her usual book club friends. I nodded thoughtfully. Thanks for keeping an eye out, Mrs. O'Malley. Neighborhood watch is important. Damn right it is. Some people have no shame. Monday evening, I decided it was time for a more direct approach. Scott frequented Murphy's bar downtown. I had learned this from his Instagram posts. The man documented everything, apparently including his infidelity. I arrived at Murphy's at 6:30 p.m. and took a seat at the bar. Scott was already there with 2 friends, loud and animated, telling some story about a client presentation. He gestured with his beer, completely oblivious to my presence 3 stools away. So I told them, you can't just throw money at digital marketing and expect miracles. These corporate types have no vision, you know? His friends nodded along, like he was dispensing wisdom from Mount Sinai. I waited until he went to the restroom, then followed. The bathroom was empty except for us. Scott Williams? I said casually. He looked up from the urinal, surprised. Yeah, do I know you? Jason Fairburn, Laura's husband. The color drained from his face. To his credit, he didn't try to deny anything, but he also didn't apologize or show any shame, just fear. Look, man, I don't want any trouble. No trouble, I interrupted. Just wanted to meet the guy who's been helping my wife with her yoga. Heard you're very flexible. I stepped closer, not threatening, just conversational. Funny thing about flexibility, Scott. Push too hard and things break, sometimes permanently. He zipped up quickly and moved toward the door. I didn't stop him. Careful on your way out, I called after him. Some stains don't come out, like you. I returned to the bar and ordered another beer. Scott was gathering his friends, making excuses about early meetings and prior commitments. They left within 5 minutes. I smiled and raised my glass to their departing figures. Cheers. The body pillows arrived Wednesday morning, delivered directly to Laura's office at Meridian Tech Solutions. I'd paid extra for signature confirmation and a photo of delivery. Laura called me at 4:47 a.m., her voice shaking with rage. What the hell is wrong with you, Jason? I'm sorry, you'll have to be more specific. Are we talking about my choice in breakfast cereal or something else? You sent those things to my office. Everyone saw them. Things. I sent you a gift. 2 gifts, actually. Thought you might appreciate having both your favorite men close by during those long work days. The silence stretched for 10 seconds. When Laura spoke again, her voice was ice cold. You're going to regret this? Probably. But not as much as you're going to regret underestimating me. She hung up. Within minutes, my phone buzzed with notifications. Laura was posting on Facebook, Instagram, every social platform she used. When your husband's insecurity reaches new lows, some men can't handle a strong, independent woman. Toxic masculinity at its finest. Done with this strong women, toxic men. The post got 17 likes and 43 comments, mostly from her echo chamber of enablers. Tara and Aaron led the charge with supportive messages about emotional misuse and controlling behavior. I screenshot everything. Documentation was key. Thursday, I implemented Phase 3. Using my legitimate access to network security tools, I discovered that Scott's company, Visionary Digital, had some interesting vulnerabilities in their employee conduct policies. Nothing illegal about researching publicly available corporate information. I crafted an anonymous email to Visionary's HR department. I feel compelled to report concerning behavior by one of your employees, Scott Williams. Mr. Williams has been engaging in an inappropriate relationship with a married client, using company resources and time for personal meetings. This reflects poorly on Visionary Digital's professional standards. Documentation available upon request. I didn't send it immediately. Timing was everything. Friday night, Laura announced she was going out with Tara and Aaron. Girls need to stick together, she said pointedly. Have fun, I replied. Try not to do anything you'll regret. An hour after she left, I drove to Scott's building. The parking garage was nearly empty, just a few cars belonging to weekend workers. Scott's red Tesla sat in its usual spot. I parked nearby and waited. At 9:23 p.m., Scott emerged from the elevator with Laura. They were holding hands, laughing about something. Laura looked happier than she'd been with me in months. They separated at their cars. Laura had driven herself to maintain the illusion of a girls' night out. Scott got into his Tesla and pulled out first. Laura followed 30 seconds later. I started my engine and fell in behind them, maintaining distance. They drove to the same hotel they'd used before, parking in adjacent spaces like they'd done this dance many times. I didn't follow them inside. Instead, I parked across the street and sent the anonymous email to Visionary Digital's HR department. Then I waited. At 11:15 p.m., they emerged from the hotel. Scott walked Laura to her car, kissed her goodnight, and headed toward his Tesla. I started my engine and pulled out behind him. Scott drove carefully, probably still buzzed from whatever they'd been drinking. I stayed 3 car lengths back, just another set of headlights in his rearview mirror. When he turned onto the highway on-ramp, I accelerated and moved into the lane beside him. At 65 miles per hour, I paced him for exactly 1 mile, letting him see my face in his peripheral vision. Recognition dawned slowly. Scott's head turned, his eyes widened, and his Tesla swerved slightly toward the shoulder. I rolled down my passenger window and called out, "You keep running into other people's wives, you're bound to get hit. Maybe next time you won't see it coming." Scott floored the accelerator, his Tesla shooting ahead like a red bullet. I let him run. No point in a high-speed chase. I had made my point. Besides, I had bigger plans brewing. Saturday morning brought the first real consequence. Laura's phone rang at 8:30 a.m. I was making coffee when she answered. "Hello? Yes, this is Laura Staples." "What?" "No, I don't understand. Can you repeat that?" Her voice grew increasingly agitated. I pretended to focus on my breakfast while listening to her side of the conversation. "That's completely inappropriate. I demand to know who made this accusation. This is maltreatment, pure and simple." She hung up and stared at her phone like it had bitten her. "Everything okay?" I asked innocently. "Someone reported Scott to his HR department, made up some story about inappropriate conduct with clients." "That's terrible. I hope it's not serious." Laura's eyes narrowed. "You wouldn't know anything about this, would you?" "Me? I don't even know where Scott works. Besides, why would I care about some random guy's employment situation?" But my denial came too easily. And Laura was smarter than I'd given her credit for. She knew. Maybe she couldn't prove it, but she knew. The war was officially declared. Laura's counterattack came Monday morning. I arrived at my office to find an email from building security. Someone had filed a complaint about threatening behavior in the parking garage. The complaint was anonymous, but security footage would be reviewed. I wasn't worried. I'd been careful to avoid any actual threats or illegal behavior. But Laura was escalating, which meant I needed to escalate too. I called Nate. "Time for Phase 4, I told him. "I need backup for a public demonstration." "What kind of demonstration?" "The kind that involves those body pillows and a very crowded lunch hour." Nate laughed. "You magnificent fool. I'm in." Tuesday, I took a long lunch break and drove to Meridian Tech Solutions. Laura's office building had a large atrium with a cafe, always packed during lunch hour. Perfect for what I had in mind. I parked in the visitor section and called Laura's direct line. Jason, what do you want? Just wanted to let you know I'm in the neighborhood. Thought I'd drop by and see your office. Maybe meet some of your coworkers. Don't you dare come up here. Why not? I'm your husband. Surely your colleagues would love to meet me. I could hear the panic in her voice. Jason, I'm warning you. See you in 5 minutes. I hung up and grabbed the 2 body pillows from my back seat. They were professionally made, life-sized, with high-resolution photos printed on soft fabric. One showed my face with a sardonic smile. The other showed Scott's face, which I'd cropped from his LinkedIn profile. The atrium was packed with office workers, grabbing lunch and coffee. I walked through the crowd carrying both pillows, drawing stares and whispered comments. Laura appeared at the top of the escalator, her face flushed with embarrassment and rage. She hurried down, trying to intercept me before I reached the elevator bank. Jason, stop this right now. Stop what? I'm just delivering a gift to my loving wife. A small crowd had gathered, phones coming out to record the scene. In the age of social media, public drama was entertainment. You're making a scene, Laura hissed. I'm making a point. I held up both pillows so everyone could see them clearly. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to meet my wife Laura and her 2 favorite men. Laura's coworkers had emerged from the elevators, drawn by the commotion. I recognized Tara and Aaron from Laura's Facebook photos. They looked mortified. This is maltreatment, Laura said loudly, playing to the crowd. My husband is having a mental breakdown. Mental breakdown? I laughed. Laura, I've never been more clear-headed in my life. In fact, I've been doing some reading lately. Did you know that yoga is supposed to improve flexibility and honesty? Seems like you only got half the benefits. Someone in the crowd snickered. Laura's face went pale. Here, I said, offering her both pillows. Since you clearly prefer having both of us around, now you can take us anywhere. Work, home, book club meetings, yoga sessions, wherever you need us. I set the pillows on a nearby table and walked away, leaving Laura standing there with 50 people staring at her and recording everything on their phones. By evening, the video had spread throughout Meridian Tech Solutions and beyond. Laura's public humiliation was complete, or so I thought. Wednesday brought news that Scott had been placed on administrative leave pending an investigation into the anonymous complaint. His company took ethics violations seriously, especially when they involved potential client relationships. Thursday, Laura served me with a restraining order petition claiming I was stalking and maltreating her. The court date was set for the following week. Friday, I received a call from Detective Miles at the local police department. Mr. Fairburn, I'd like to speak with you about some allegations that have been made. What kind of allegations? Why don't you come down to the station? Nothing formal, just a conversation. I arrived at the police station with a folder full of documentation. Laura's text messages, the garage camera footage, timestamps, and locations for all my activities. Detective Miles was a tired-looking man in his 50s who seemed more interested in resolving the situation than prosecuting anyone. Your wife claims you've been stalking her and her friend, he began. Her friend? I opened my folder. You mean Scott Williams, the man who's been having an affair with my wife in my own home? I showed him the evidence. The text messages, the camera footage, the hotel receipts. Detective Miles studied everything carefully. This is a domestic situation, he said finally. You're both adults, you're married, and as far as I can see, you haven't broken any laws. But this public confrontation stuff needs to stop. Understood. I'm not interested in breaking the law, Detective. I'm interested in justice. Justice and revenge aren't the same thing, Mr. Fairburn. No, I agreed, but sometimes they overlap. I left the police station with a warning, but no charges. Laura's restraining order petition would likely fail. I had too much evidence of her own misconduct. But I wasn't done yet, not by a long shot. The final phase was about to begin. Saturday morning, I received a call from my lawyer. Laura had filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences and emotional misuse. She was asking for half of everything, plus alimony and child support. She's also claiming you've been threatening her and her associates, my lawyer said. Says you've been stalking them, interfering with their employment, and causing emotional distress. I have documentation that disputes those claims. Good. because her lawyer is pushing for an emergency hearing. They want a temporary restraining order and immediate separation of assets. I hung up and called Nate. Time for the final phase. Are you ready? Born ready. What do you need? Remember that audio recording equipment you used for surveillance work? I need to borrow it. Jason, be careful. Recording people without consent can be tricky legally. Don't worry. I know exactly what I'm doing. Sunday evening, I implemented the trap. Using a prepaid phone, I sent Scott a text message. Laura's husband knows everything. Meet me at Murphy's bar at 9 p.m. We need to talk. I arrived at Murphy's at 8:45 p.m. and took a table in the back corner. The recording device was hidden in my jacket pocket, legally activated since I was a party to any conversation that would occur. Scott arrived at 9:10 p.m. looking nervous and agitated. He spotted me immediately and approached cautiously. You wanted to talk, he said, sliding into the opposite chair. I wanted to give you a chance to explain yourself before this gets ugly. Scott's confidence returned slightly. Look, Jason, I know this is awkward, but Laura and we have something real. She's not happy in your marriage. She hasn't been for years. So you decided to help her work through those feelings? She deserves better than what you've given her. She's an amazing woman, smart, ambitious, passionate. You treat her like a roommate. I nodded thoughtfully. And what about my daughters? How does your real relationship affect them? Kids are resilient. They'll adapt. Besides, Laura says you're barely involved in their lives anyway. The recording device captured every word. Scott was digging his own grave with each sentence. What's your endgame here, Scott? You think Laura's going to leave me and ride off into the sunset with you? I think Laura's going to do what makes her happy. And that's not staying married to someone who doesn't appreciate her. Interesting perspective. What does Tara think about all this? Scott looked confused. Tara? Laura's friend, the one who's been helping coordinate your meetings. She must have opinions about your relationship. Tara thinks Laura should follow her heart. And Erin? She's been pretty supportive too, from what I understand. Yeah, Erin gets it. She's been through a similar situation. I leaned forward. So you've discussed this with multiple people. Laura's friends, coworkers, probably others. This isn't just a private matter between you and my wife. Laura needed support. This hasn't been easy for her. I'm sure it hasn't. Lying to your husband for 6 months while sleeping with another man in his own home, that must be exhausting. Scott's face flushed. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. How was it supposed to happen, Scott? Laura was going to tell you. She just needed time to figure out how. 6 months wasn't enough time? She was protecting you and the kids. She didn't want to hurt anyone unnecessarily. I almost laughed. So she was cheating on me to protect me? You don't understand the situation. I understand perfectly. I stood up. I understand that you're a coward who pursued a married woman, convinced her to betray her family, and now you're trying to justify it as some kind of noble romance. Scott stood too, his voice rising. Laura doesn't love you anymore, Jason. She loves me. Deal with it. We'll see about that. I left Murphy's bar with everything I needed. Scott had confessed to the affair, admitted to coordinating with Laura's friends, and revealed their long-term plans to destroy my marriage, all captured in crystal clear audio. Monday morning, I sent copies of the recording to my lawyer, along with all the other evidence I'd gathered. Then I sent a copy to Visionary Digital's HR department with a note explaining that their employee had been using company time and resources for personal matters. Tuesday, I received a call from Tara. Jason, this is Tara, Laura's friend. We need to talk. About what? About stopping this insanity before it goes too far. We met at a coffee shop near her office. Tara looked tired and stressed, nothing like the confident woman from Laura's social media posts. Laura's falling apart, she said without preamble. She's barely sleeping, she can't focus at work, and she's talking about doing something drastic. What kind of drastic? She wants to claim you threatened her, file attack charges, get you arrested. She thinks if you're in jail, she'll have time to regroup. I pulled out my phone and started recording. Are you saying Laura wants to file false charges against me? Tara realized her mistake immediately. No, that's not what I meant. That's exactly what you meant. You're telling me that my wife plans to commit perjury and file false police reports. Turn that off, Tara demanded. No, keep talking. This is fascinating. Erin has it all planned out. She knows someone who works at the prosecutor's office. They think they can make the charges stick long enough to give Laura an advantage in the divorce. And you're okay with sending an innocent man to jail? Tara's composure cracked. You're not innocent, Jason. You've been stalking Laura and Scott, maltreating them, interfering with their relationship. Their relationship? You mean their affair? The one that's been going on in my house, with my wife while my children sleep upstairs. Laura deserves to be happy. Laura deserves to face the consequences of her choices. I stopped recording and stood up. Tell Laura and Aaron that I have this conversation on tape. Tell them that if they file false charges against me, I'll make sure every word gets played in court. And tell them that their little conspiracy just became evidence in my divorce case. Tara's face went white. You can't record people without their permission. Actually, I can. Massachusetts is a two-party consent state for private conversations. But this is a public place, and you approached me with information about criminal activity. I have every right to document threats against my safety and freedom. I left Tara sitting there, probably calling Laura to report that their plan had backfired spectacularly. Wednesday brought the final confrontation. Laura, Tara, and Aaron showed up at my office building, apparently planning some kind of public demonstration about abusive husbands and toxic masculinity. I watched from my window as they set up signs and started chanting. A few passersby stopped to listen, but most people hurried past, uncomfortable with the obvious personal drama. Building security asked them to leave after 20 minutes. As they packed up their signs, Laura looked up at my window. Even from 5 floors away, I could see the hatred in her eyes. My phone buzzed with a text from Laura. This isn't over. I texted back. Yes, it is. Thursday, Scott was officially terminated from Visionary Digital for violating company ethics policies. The same day, Laura received notice that I was countersuing for divorce on grounds of infidelity, with full documentation of her affair and the conspiracy to file false charges. Friday, I picked up my daughters from school and took them to dinner. Beth and Janie knew something was wrong between their parents, but I'd been careful to shield them from the ugliest details. Dad, are you and Mom getting divorced? Beth asked over pizza. Yes, sweetheart, but that doesn't change how much we both love you. Is it because of that man who comes to the house? Janie asked. My heart broke a little. You knew about that? We heard Mom talking to him on the phone. She said not to tell you. I hugged both my daughters and promised them that whatever happened between their parents, they would always be loved and protected. Saturday morning, I received the final piece of evidence I needed. Mrs. O'Malley knocked on my door with a manila envelope. Thought you might want these, she said. I've been keeping track of all the comings and goings, dates, times, license plates. Figured someone should document what was happening. Inside the envelope were detailed logs going back 8 months, photographs of Scott's car in my driveway, and even receipts from the hotel where Laura and Scott had been meeting. Why? I asked. Mrs. O'Malley smiled grimly. Because 40 years ago, my husband did the same thing to me, and back then, women like me didn't have any recourse. But times have changed. Now cheaters face consequences. Sunday, I compiled everything into a comprehensive file. Text messages, audio recordings, video footage, photographs, witness statements, and timeline documentation. The evidence was overwhelming and legally bulletproof. Laura's affair was documented from multiple angles. Scott's confession was recorded. Tara's admission of conspiracy was captured on audio. Aaron's involvement was established through message logs. I had won. Completely, totally, and permanently. Monday morning, I delivered copies of the complete file to my lawyer, Laura's lawyer, and the court handling our divorce case. I also sent copies to Meridian Tech Solutions, HOR department, and to the local newspaper's investigative reporter, who specialized in exposing public corruption and fraud. By noon, Laura had been placed on administrative leave pending an internal investigation. Tara had been questioned by police about conspiracy charges. Aaron had deleted all her social media accounts. Scott had fled town, apparently moving back in with his parents in Ohio. Tuesday, Laura called me for the first time in weeks. You've destroyed everything, she said, her voice hollow. No, Laura, you destroyed everything. I just documented it. My career's over. My friends won't speak to me. I have nowhere to go. You should have thought about that before you decided to cheat on your husband and conspire to frame him for crimes he didn't commit. I never meant for it to go this far. Yes, you did. You meant for it to go exactly this far. You just thought you were going to win. The divorce was finalized 3 weeks later. I kept the house, primary custody of the children, and most of our assets. Laura received minimal alimony and supervised visitation rights. Scott never returned to Massachusetts. Tara was arrested for conspiracy and served 6 months in county jail. Erin moved to California, apparently to start over where nobody knew her story. Laura found a small apartment across town and a part-time job at a call center. The ambitious HR director who'd once mocked her clueless husband was gone, replaced by a broken woman who'd learned the hard way that actions have consequences. 6 months after the divorce, I ran into Laura at the grocery store. She looked tired and older, wearing clothes I didn't recognize and pushing a cart full of generic brands. "Hello, Jason," she said quietly. "Laura." We stood there for a moment, two people who'd once promised to love each other forever, now strangers bound only by shared children and bitter memories. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "What you did to me?" I considered the question seriously. "Do you ever regret what you did to us?" She didn't answer. "I regret that it came to this," I said finally. "I regret that you made choices that forced me to choose between being a sufferer and being a survivor. But I don't regret surviving." Laura nodded and walked away, disappearing into the maze of grocery aisles like a ghost from someone else's life. I finished my shopping and drove home to my daughters, who were waiting for me to help with homework and make dinner. Beth had a science project due Monday. Janie wanted to practice piano. Normal life, honest life, the life I'd fought to protect and preserve. That evening, as I tucked Janie into bed, she asked, "Dad, are you happy now?" "Yes, sweetheart, I'm happy." "Good. You deserve to be happy." Out of the mouths of babes. I turned off her light and walked downstairs to my workshop, where I keep the framed photo from the day Laura received those body pillows at her office. Someone had captured the perfect moment, her face frozen in shock and humiliation, surrounded by coworkers and strangers, holding two pillows that represented everything she'd lost. You always wanted both of us, I thought. Now you've got neither. Sometimes revenge isn't just a dish best served cold. Sometimes it's best delivered with a pillow and a punchline.